So I want you all to know, hmm, maybe we've been doing this for a month, this year to live fully, this imagining, playing with the idea that we only have 1 year to live. And I want you all to know how much it's helping me already. And so to have the support of a group that is willing to allow me to teach and explore and then practice with you all, and then to have the teaching and the exploring come up and be present for me as a support when the low points happen. And when the high points happen, but certainly when the low points happen, and I feel like I need something that pulls me back into what I most deeply know. And it's the things that happen in this practice circle and in my other circles that are constantly running around in my brain, my heart, my being that draws me back. So that I keep this front of mind, front of heart, and I do. So the last couple of times we were talking about wonder. And this time I want to say a little bit about one of the things that disrupts us from wonder. It's the thing that disrupts us from many of the qualities and tendencies of the soul or our most authentic self, and that's the ego. So, first of all, asking ourselves, when we talk about death, in death, what is it that dies? So I'm not going to ask anybody to answer that, but I want you to take a moment to answer it for yourself. What is it that dies? And what is it that we are so afraid of dying? So a short and scientific kind of answer would be is that the body and the functioning of the body is what ends. It's what gives out. Um, and then we can ask the question and see if what we believe about this. When the body stops functioning and dies, what is it that doesn't die, if anything? What is it that doesn't die? So I'm going to be reading from Walking Each Other Home. And he says, the ego is a structure of mind. This is so important to understand. The ego is a structure of mind. Mind is part of the physical being, the brain. It's a mental structure. The ego and its thoughts and opinions and beliefs that we are constantly dealing with is created by the mind through the brain. And its deepest and most foundational belief, the one that we develop first and everything else is built on top of, is that we are separate. I am me, you are you. We are two different beings. The soul, this other part of us, does not necessarily believe that. So the ego it lives in the whole domain of separateness. And it is the steering mechanism for us as a separate entity that survives and functions within the universe, within this world, and on this plane. It's one part of us, but it's the part of us that gets almost all the attention. And the other part of us, I call soul. This is the part of us that merges, that is at one with others, at one with nature, at one with love and God. It's the part of us that flows and stays in balance. And it gives things away. It doesn't fear for the future. And so these two parts of us, ego and soul, are in tension with one another. So Ram Dass tells a little bit about his story. He said, what happened to me as a soul? He said, I took birth into a good family. He got born into a good family. They socialized me really well. They installed the software into my computer for the space suit that I was wearing in this incarnation, which is called the ego. So the software is how to behave in this world, Ram Dass. We all got the software from our families, told us how to behave, how to be in this world. And so he says, I developed a model of who I am, also of who you are, and how to function so that I could survive on this plane. That's what it's all about. Ego is all about surviving on this plane. Then he says, the predicament was that along the way, I forgot I was a soul who had been born. I began to think that I was the computer program. For 30 years, I forgot who I was. I was busy being who I thought I was because the ego thinks up who we are and who everybody had trained me to be. He said, they trained me to be somebody. And the minute I got my somebodyness down, I went into somebody special training. So not only like, oh, here I am, here's me. Now the next step is attempting to become somebody special. We all do this as well. So I became somebody special, just like you did. And you began to take yourself seriously. That's the predicament that most of us are stuck in most of the time. So then he says, but I was a soul. Even though I was a soul, I was still attached to my familiar way of being. We're mostly attached to our ego. And I kept falling back into the ego-centric view instead of a soul-centric view. I kept falling back into the ego-centered view instead of the soul-centered view. Why do we do that? Because our culture reinforces the ego-centered view. We don't really have cultures that reinforce the soul-centered view, unless you consider our little circle here that's attempting, this is a culture, this is a community that's attempting to reinforce the soul-centered view. He says, now when you develop the ego, the central computer necessary for running the game, the problem is not the ego itself, but how identified we are with it. How identified we are with it. There is nothing wrong with the ego. It's just that we think it's totally who we are. He says, in spiritual evolution, we don't destroy the ego. Rather, we stop identifying with it. You simply come to see it as a functional unit. You need it to be functional so that, for example, when I'm talking to you, I realize there is a you and a me, and we're talking on this plane. At the same time, I can know that I'm a soul and that you're a soul. So they can all live and dwell here together. This is something we have to remember. The ego is a lousy master. It shouldn't be in charge. It's a lousy master, but a wonderful servant. So the process of healing and transformation is to convert that master, the ego that thinks it's in charge and has to be in charge, converting it into a servant. So, why? What's really wrong with the ego? The ego, in its belief in separateness, is built on fear. It's built on its fear of not surviving, of not existing. The soul is built on love. So the ego cannot be built on love. It is not. Whatever we touch in ourselves that is of love, it does not come from the ego. It is all built on fear. And if we think we are the ego, we're afraid most of the time. We're going to be afraid on some level most of the time. So the Sufis say you must live before you can die, but you must die before you can live. The dying that opens us to life is the letting go of our attachment to our desires and to the fruits of our actions, living life as it is, not as we want it to be. To live life as it is, not as we want it to be. It's no surprise to anybody here that the life that I am living now is not the life I had hoped for or planned. It's not the life that my family hoped for or planned, but it is what is the reality. And so I have been, in my opinion, just astoundingly blessed to come to this point, this experience in my life, where I already know this part of myself, the soul, and I understand this other part of myself, the ego. And even though I know it, and I know them both well, I still feel the fear. So I just want to really share this with you all. I, for a long time, have said, I'm not afraid to die. But the thing that the ego so desperately fears is not to exist. So that even in people who are really working this, like I have been, in terms of presence and surrender and letting go, that fear comes. We can feel it. I will not live this lifetime without my ego. It will have fear. I've been reading some things about death lately, and especially about people who don't have any understanding like this. And all that can exist there is panic and terror. Because if the ego is all you are and it's not going to exist, all we can feel is that panic. There's nowhere else to put our feet. When that comes to me, when I can feel that little bit of, oh my God, at some future date that's real now, not hypothetical as it's been in the past, that's real now, I will no longer be here. When that happens to me, I can now go into a place of love, presence, soul, all these things that are so much more real than the ego. How do I know they're real? How can I prove they're real? Once you learn to touch into it, which is what we're doing in our practice, you know it. You can feel which one has the deep, grounded reality and which one is moving about in its kind of scuttling, worrisome, constant fear and wondering and questioning. all the things that keep us from being at rest and being our true self. The greatest thing about living from soul is the sense of freedom you feel. And it's a freedom to be fully you. You're no longer driven by the expectations of the ego. So that's ego death. Not that ego goes away or doesn't exist anymore. It stops controlling the show. And when we can do that, we get to experience a great freedom and relaxation. And that's what we practice towards in surrendered presence. So I invite us to practice together. First of all, I want to recall the reality, the truth that we practice in a space of love. That not only as we gather together is a field of love created here, it is, but also the reality that love was here before us, that love has been present to us in every moment. It will be present to us in every moment. Our work is to become aware of it and to trust it. So I invite us to take a breath in. And as we let it out, let yourself drop in to this field of love and to this ocean of love. Just like a drop of water falls into the sea and becomes one with it. And now I invite you to just notice your own experience. So you're just noticing whatever is happening for you now. No matter how small an experience, no matter how great, you notice it and silently name it to yourself. And as another experience arises, you notice it and name it. This is our first step into presence. Being able to name any experience at all, even if it's, I feel my nose running, means that I am in my present experience and I know what's happening for me. So this is simply the first step, and then we practice deepening presence by being deeply aware and in our bodies. So we notice our feet and our lower legs. We notice our knees, our thighs, and our hips. We notice our pelvis and our belly. Noticing all the organs of the belly. We notice our chest. And we notice our own beating heart. We notice our shoulders, our arms, and our hands. We notice our back starting down at the tailbone and following the spine up to include the muscles and the ribs. Noticing the neck, the scalp, and the face. And then we notice ourselves as one whole physical being here now. And we ground ourselves deeply in this, our physical presence. The body grounds us and holds us as we begin to attend to the other parts of our being, beginning with our hearts. The heart being your emotional center, the part of you that feels. And to give all our compassionate attention to our heart in this moment, to listen to it, to feel with it. What is on and in your heart. And then we notice the part of ourself that is aliveness. This is your spirit. This is the sense of energy that flows through you. See if you can get a sense of that, what your flow, your energy is like in this moment. And then giving your awareness to your mind. Generally, as we focused on other parts of our being, our mind begins to quiet. It stops taking center stage. So we can be in a place where we can simply observe thoughts as they arise, or just the quiet emptiness of the mind. And then to notice ourselves as one whole being, that we are body, heart, spirit, mind, here, now. Just this feeling of this wholeness of being, this is our presence. We're here. Staying grounded in our being, we become aware of the way the earth is drawing us into itself and holding us here. And when we really recognize we are held, this truth, this reality, we no longer have to worry about holding ourselves. The earth's got us. We won't float away. So we can relax. We can begin to let go. And so see if you can begin to give yourself over to holding. You do not have to hold yourself. You can allow yourself to be held. When we do this, we begin to open. There's more space within our whole being as we naturally give ourselves over. And from here, we observe our breath. And what we're noticing is this completely natural flow that happens in every moment of our lifetimes of receiving air and then letting go. This is the complete natural flow of all of nature. Things arise and fall. Things flow in and back out again. We don't have to hold on to anything. We don't have to force anything. We simply stay in this natural rhythm. And it is this way that we were always meant to be. And as we come into that natural flow, we more easily become one with nature, with the world. And then bringing our awareness, particularly to that out breath, and imagining that the out breath is a wave that we can ride. We just follow that breath all the way out, letting it carry us into a space of complete surrender, a complete letting go. And we find ourselves coming to rest in a space of simple being. As we go through the stages of the practice, our ego falls more and more away as we become present in the moment, more relaxed, more surrendered, and our soul, the truest part of ourselves, can come forward. So that we get to know this part of ourselves. We get to know the reality of who we are. Thank you so much for practicing with me and supporting my own practice. I love you all.